Hello, you are watching and listening to another Scoutcast from fantasyfootballscout.co.uk. My name is Joe.
My name's David.
My name's Andy.
My name's Mark.
Excellent. Yes, thanks so much for Mark joining us. He's our special guest, otherwise known as FPL General, and we'll find out how he got on in Gameweek 3 and find out his views ahead of Gameweek 4 a little bit later. But first of all, we've got to say, after 2 game weeks with some incredible scores from us and many people in the community, it was crashing back down to earth in Gameweek 3. Red cards, blanks, injuries. They've scuppered our best laid plans. Now we're being herded into the direction of a certain former Arsenal winger, or are we? And perhaps even a wild card, or maybe not. And here we look back at our average to awful game week, I think. We're going to consider some replacements for red-carded Richarlison, the merits of Hazard, the Power 5 defence, Kane and Spurs options, when to wild card, and also look ahead to what our plans are for next game week. So let's crack on and have a look at game week 3. David, you're top of the pile with a mighty 51 points. It's a whole point above average. You must be delighted. Tell us what moves you made and how the game week went.
Yeah, I'm definitely delighted. I mean, especially after the conversation we had last week, to come back in game week 3, top of the pile. Quite happy with that. Although, I can't really take too much praise because 51 points. We all did pretty poorly, didn't we? So the moves I did, I deliberated over it for a long time, but I took out Lennon and I took out Lacazette. Those quotes at the end of the week just really made me uneasy about Lacazette. I know he said he was. I know he didn't say he's definitely not going to play, but he was banging on about possession, and I just thought Mkhitaryan and Ozil more likely to play. Of course, he then got an assist, so thanks for that, Alex. But I brought in Mkhitaryan and Ings, who obviously blanked, but the big thing I was quite happy with, and I know that I think Mark will probably say the same, and I think Andy as well. Actually, I think we all talked about it on Twitter. Was that long live the King, eh? Long live Josh King. We gave him one more week, and he delivered. Basically the reason I did that was just there was just enough evidence to think he's got one more week in him. Like, we know he's probably going to take the next penalty because of game week 1. 3 goals and 3 against Everton, and it's the Everton defence. So I figured there's not much point taking a guy out in that position. I think he'd had 13 penalty box touches. He hadn't done much in there, but he was still around and about. So I figured give him one more week, and he delivered. So that was quite nice. Outside of that, it wasn't a great deal more than just the usual suspects really. I had Mendy 4 points, I had Robertson, had Salah as captain, and they were basically the only guys who delivered. I came close to getting a clean sheet out of Ben Foster, but Wilfred Zaha decided to go and nip that one.
Not to be.
So I mean, it was So I mean, it was above the average, and I think my red arrow was fairly small. So I've got to be happy with that.
Week. What about you, Andy? 50 points, bang on average. What went right? What went wrong?
Yeah, I got that from 10 players as well. I knew obviously Wan-Bissaka was missing, and I knew there was a chance that Mourinho was going to make an example of the defence from last week. So I kept Bailly anyway. So I was down to 10 men because I had Peltier as well on my bench. So no defenders to come in for Bailly, unfortunately. I've always had a very similar story. I kept King for the same reasons that David's already mentioned. I did Sanchez and Jota to Mane and Mkhitaryan, which didn't really benefit me at all. But I think in the long run, I got the better 2 players there. And I wasn't expecting Sanchez to feature so quickly because Mourinho originally said that he was going to be out for 1 to 2 weeks. A pretty average week. I had Zaha, which was nice, but bonus points wise, he's not doing too good. But 2 goals in 3 games, I can't complain too much about that. And the only thing I did consider doing was King and Bailly to Alonso and Ings. So obviously King did well, but Alonso did well too. So I'd have actually been equal on points, but I would have got some price rises out of Alonso. So a little mistake maybe, but I'm happy with King now. And after the Chelsea game, he's still got some really good fixtures coming up. And now looks like he's the main penalty taker until he misses.
FPL General, Mark, you got 47, a little bit below average. You had mixed fortunes with your patient approach. Worked out for some and not for others.
Yeah, it was a pretty frustrating game week as a whole. 47 points below average. As David mentioned, I kept Josh King as well, so that one worked out for me. Eriksen got me an assist, but Ben Davies just summed up my game week, really. Spurs get their first clean sheet, and Pochettino decides to bench Ben Davies and brings him on for a 1-point cameo. So very, very frustrating game week. My free transfer was Jota out for Pedro. Pedro disappointed as well. Had his chances, but again, disappointing. So I'm hopeful that Pedro can do something for me against Bournemouth. Richarlison red card, nothing from Aguero, Van Aanholt. So yeah, a game week to forget for me, really.
Well, I'll be quick with mine because it's 43, which is pretty bad. I've had worse though. So I sold Eriksen and Josh King. So I think a lesson learned there. I'm going to be a little bit more patient, a couple more game weeks, and I sold them for Mkhitaryan and Danny and Ings, who did nothing. So I joked actually on the Breakfast Club, for those that saw it. We had our first Breakfast Club stream on Saturday. I was kind of hoping if Shaw got benched, I had Bolly on my bench to fill in, and I joked that it would be one of those games where Bolly would get a goal against top side, and lo and behold, he did. So obviously, he's
gave you a helping hand, you could say.
He did. He gave me a helping hand. I mean, it was, you know, if there was VAR in that game, it wouldn't have counted. But nevertheless, so I was really hoping Shaw would be dropped, and he wasn't. And he came in with 1 point, which sums up my game week really. I lacked patience, and I didn't get Alonso, who was a player I was going to get but didn't. But I have now. But we'll come to that a bit later. So let's move on straight on to the community questions. What to do with Richarlison? So he's been absolutely amazing early doors. We've got lots of questions on this, but red card, so he's out for 3 games, but just 2 Premier League games. Trov Smash, FPL wonders who the best replacement is. He suggests Walcott, Pedro, and Fraser among the top choices there. Los Blancos, any sense in keeping Richarlison through his suspension, especially if you want him back? Basically, it's 2 transfers. Get rid of him, get him back. So maybe keep him if you can. FPL guy, is the Walcott train a situation of great minds think alike, or is it fools seldom differ? I just want to mention Jack Amore here, because he mentions that Watford and Everton rotate very well. So that's just something to consider if perhaps you've got Walcott and perhaps you don't fancy some tricky games down the line from him. He also, I forgot to mention him last week, he was the guy that mentioned Wan-Bissaka and Ings rotate very well. So anyway, yeah, thanks Jack there. And FPL Blue Islander, is Mora a good player to get in? He, of course, scored a brace against Manchester United. So let's go to our guest first, FPL General. Mark, what do you think? You've got Richarlison. Who have you got rid? Who's top of your list, and why?
Yeah, so I've got just 1 free transfer this week, and Richarlison is top of the list for me to move on this week. I have Arnautovic as well, so I'm probably going to wait for an update on his injury, because if he's ruled out, it might change my thinking a wee bit. It might force me into a hit. So initial thoughts as a Richarlison replacement, it's the straight swap to Theo. Theo's got the form, he's got the fixtures, and I just like attackers from Marco Silva's sides. They go out to score goals. Huddersfield and West Ham at home in the next 2. I can see Theo continuing his form in those 2. I've already got Pedro, so that rules him out for me. But I still think I probably would be leaning towards Theo at the moment if I didn't have those 2. I do like the option as well of possibly downgrading Richarlison to free up some funds maybe for future moves, with the likes of Eden Hazard in mind and things like that. So I do like Ryan Fraser. He started the season very strongly. I know he's got Chelsea next, so it's not an ideal time to get him in, but long term I think he's going to have a big season, and I think he's doing well in the cup game tonight as well. So he's another one.
David, now you, by fortuitous coincidence, you've just published an article on Richarlison replacements, and I just ran a look through it, and it was very interesting reading. So obviously Theo Walcott gets mentioned. What's the verdict? What's the conclusion?
Yeah, I think Walcott makes sense, and to be honest, a lot of the pros for Walcott are kind of hard to find in the data. So basically, just to give people an idea of how the article kind of worked out, I just took 4 categories. That was goal threat, creativity, expected data, and opposition, and just kind of like meshed them all together into a bit of a matrix. And basically, Walcott came out 7th in that, behind Gross, Pereira, Fraser, Brooks, Mkhitaryan, and Pedro. But I think what is worth pointing out is that so effectively he was slightly below Richarlison for goal threat, above him for creativity, below him for expected. And obviously his opposition for the next couple of games is better because he's actually going to play. But I think the key thing with Walcott is that it's kind of hard to maybe sort of like get a full idea of what he's capable of, because obviously Everton, I think it's something like 48% of their season so far has been spent with 10 men. So they're obviously restricted, and you'd like to think that in their next game they might actually finish with 11 men on the pitch. Yeah, I don't know. I don't have Richarlison, so I'm like, this isn't necessarily like such a big issue for me. I mean, basically, what the data is saying is get Pedro, because he basically he's not top in any of those categories I mentioned. He's just ranks very favourably in all of them. He's second for goal threat, third for creativity, ninth for expected, sixth for opposition. So just that basically puts him at the top. I suppose who you get might come down to who else you're looking at. So like if you're looking at getting Hazard, then you probably shouldn't get Pedro. Mkhitaryan's done fairly well in there, but if you've got Aubameyang, then there's no point in getting both of them, I don't think. I'm probably going to get Pedro personally. I don't know how I'm going to get him, but I just think that he's going to be the one that everyone flocks to because they don't have Richarlison anymore. I think I might just have to go with the flow on that one.
You're not tempted with Walker. I mean, the flow I'm receiving, oddly, alternate phrase, but is Walcott. Everyone's gone Walcott mad.
That's true.
Walcott banners, Walcott t-shirts. You're not caught up in the hype.
No, I don't know. I'm just kind of really unsure on Walcott. I mean, he'll probably just completely silence me next week and bag a hat trick or something stupid just because I've said he's not going to do very well. But no, I think he's not an option. I just prefer the idea of Pedro in for what I'd see as just a better team.
Okay.
I don't know. Controversial call maybe.
What about you, Andy? You got Richarlison?
Not anymore.
No? All right. Who's come in?
So I made a transfer. I do think I maybe made it a little bit hastily, but I've got Walcott.
Oh.
And I've made a mistake because I made early transfers last week, which I didn't mind because there was a few players going up and down. So it was more like a 0.4 million swing. And there was no matches. And I completely forgot there was League Cup matches this week. So I am regretting going early. But I've got Walcott in. I basically looked at the same three players. I also looked at Gundogan, but I feel like looking at him is almost like just trying to cover City attack rather than really wanting him specifically. I think Fraser, the thing that puts me off Fraser is that it's Chelsea next. And of course, he could do something in that game. But with a wild card in the back of my head in probably the next couple of weeks, unless everything goes right, then it's a bit of a short-term punt. And I don't really want to pick someone with Chelsea away as their next fixture. And Pedro I looked at as well. He's done well, but now Hazard is back playing 90 minutes. I just think maybe his attacking threat will go down a little bit potentially because they'll try and go through Hazard a bit more. So I've gone for Walcott. Like David said, everyone was going mad for Richarlison like he was essential. But Walcott's stats are almost the same. He's obviously got the same opposition. He's played, like David said, 100 minutes so far this season without 11 men on the pitch. The next four fixtures, Huddersfield, West Ham, Arsenal and Fulham. Those four teams are in the top 7 for shots conceded in the box and total shots conceded. So that includes Arsenal in that list. So the fixtures coming up are good for him. I think Walcott's passed the eye test, I would say. I think I've not watched, I must admit, I've not watched the full 90 minutes of their games, but I've seen the kind of match of the day and all the clips and the highlights for that. And he does seem to be doing well, I think. And like I say, stats-wise, he's not far behind Richarlison, who was almost considered essential before he got a red card. So he's got pedigree as well in the Premier League. I think there's a lot to like about him. I think next four fixtures are great. And for me, if he's that close to Richarlison in the stats, then I don't need, by getting him in, because they've got the same fixtures, I don't necessarily need to worry so much about getting Richarlison straight back in. At least I can wait until after the Fulham game, then reassess.
Yeah, I mean, I've got Richarlison. I'm tempted to keep. I have already made a transfer. I saw enough of Alonso's pure luck because players make their own luck, and Alonso is a point-scoring machine, and he's getting forwards, and at that price for essentially a Chelsea winger with 2 excellent home games coming up, I just moved. Alonso's in. So if I got rid of Richarlison, it's for a hit. So it's got to be a good one. So this is why I'm thinking about it. I don't really want to keep Richarlison over the international break because his price will go down and down and down. And it's never good over the international break to be stuck with kind of red flag players that no one wants. So I'm looking at it 2 ways. One is the stats. One is the match of the day. And one is people I canvassed on Twitter, people who'd actually seen 90 minutes. So I've asked them as well. So let's go look at the stats first. 21 midfielders priced 7 million or below have created more chances than Walcott this season. So top of the pile there is Fraser. So I like him. I like him a lot. So in terms of creativity, as David has said, Fraser's the man. But 21 midfielders are more creative than Walcott. So that doesn't appeal to him. 18 midfielders priced 7 million or below have fired off more shots than Walcott's paltry effort of 4. Pedro and Schürrle for Fulham doing well here. So Pedro is once again one I'm looking at there. Match of the day, yes, I did watch the clips there. Yes, Walcott looked good. So he passed the eye test, but match of the day clips are one thing. So I went on Twitter and I said, right, who's actually seen these matches, either been there or watched the full 90 minutes somewhere? And so Sukraj Singh said that Walcott just was pretty much anonymous the first game, despite making some good runs. Something about Tosin wasn't picking him out. So that was something he noted there. And he was clean through on goal at one point. Second game, he said that was wow. That was Walcott and Sigurdsson were linking up really well. They were tearing it up. And he felt that Walcott could got a hat-trick. So very ambitious there. Third game, Walcott not as involved. Once again, another 10-man game there. But he felt there were the chances there, and he thought Walcott had actually more attacking returns in him there. And FPL Prince as well. He's watched all the Everton matches. He's an Everton fan as well, so he has a bias, as in he's biased towards Everton players, but he's got a more realistic look at his own players compared to each other. So do we think Walcott? He says the game before, which is the game week 2, he said he believes that Walcott could have easily had 2 goals and was linking up with Sigurdsson. So once again, it's that Sigurdsson-Walcott thing that he's noted there. He felt that Silva, the manager, has been playing him much more as an inside forward. I like the sound of that as well. So Walcott and getting kind of a bit more central like that. And he felt the Tosin was getting a bit more shots to him as well. Once again, I like that. So people are actually passing the ball to him. For him, though, he is in fact not gone for him. He's downgraded in midfield so that he could get Alonso in. So for him, Alonso is the priority. Walcott is just another bloke, basically. So I don't know what to make of that, really. He's very, very keen on him, but he didn't get it himself. So he obviously thinks Alonso's far better. So yeah, anyway, I don't know whether that's interesting people. I hope so. But that's just people have actually watched the game, because people are coming at me with match of the day clips, and I've seen those clips. It doesn't really tell me much, but it's very positive from what people are saying. So Walcott is on my list, definitely. But I think I might go Pedro if I do. Anyway.
The only thing about Schürrle is that all those shots came in the last game.
Yeah, that's why I kind of discounted that.
There was no reason why he came, because I know people are starting to look at him now, but there was no reason other than just standard rotation for him to miss the second game either, I don't think.
There's like Vieto and Sessignon. Like Sessignon didn't play, did he? And then Vieto did play. There's just too many wingers at Fulham to say Schürrle's going to play every week. Yeah, definitely. And like you say, it's one game, and Burnley are terrible right now.
And also Fulham, what's put me off them is they got Brighton away. Now Brighton are a completely different beast at the Amex when they're on their travels. So I don't think that's going to be goal-alicious. It's going to be perhaps a little bit of a goal cake. But then they've got Man City away. So I just think the time for Fulham is game week 6. We'll come to wildcard timing a bit later. But so remember that, game week 6. But I don't think... Yeah, I just don't think Fulham's fixtures are that good, so that's why I'm not particularly interested in a Fulham player at the moment.
There is one other reason as well to get Walcott now, is because there's almost like an unofficial rule that at some point during an FPL season you have to own Theo Walcott. I think we've all done it, and with those fixtures, I think now's probably the time to do it rather than having to do it later in the season.
I remember I'm just getting deja vu because we've been here before last season, and I know Everton had a different manager then, but. Everyone, once again, as soon as Walcott does anything, people go ballistic. They go absolutely mad for him. And I remember being on here, and all of you, like Mark and everyone, Walcott.
FPL gold.
And I resisted, partly out of sheer belligerence.
Was that the free hit last season? I remember you guys getting really heated over that.
Yeah, I didn't do the extensive research I did. I just, out of sheer belligerence, I decided to go against not get him. And lo and behold, he did absolutely nothing, as he'd done for so much of his career. So I don't know. I don't know whether that's clouding my judgment. I want to know whether Walcott's a different beast now. And Everton fans who've watched the game say that he's improved. It's not showing up in the stats, but in the eye test for the full 90. So anyway, let's move on. Let's move on away from Richarlison and onto now. Here's someone who is good. Proper good, rather than Walcott. Hazard. Is he a must with his fixtures? Asked Brandon Walsh. He's got Bournemouth at home and Cardiff. Vardy Bo, is Hazard worth a hit with the armbands as well? So let's go to Mark again as the guest. What about Hazard? It doesn't sound like he's coming in, but is he a player you would definitely recommend?
Anyone who follows me on Twitter will know that Hazard is the biggest troll I've ever had in FPL. I always seem to miss his hauls, and he causes me pain every season. But watching him at the weekend, he's very high on my watch list now. He's a player I do want to get in as soon as possible. I don't think I'm going to be able to get him in easily this week, but looking at Chelsea's fixtures, Bournemouth, Cardiff, West Ham, I can see Hazard putting in big holes in all 3 games. So he is one I want to get on as soon as possible.
Yeah. For me, he was definitely one. I actually made my transfers last week so I could do Bernardo Silva to Hazard this week. But then Richarlison's red card came and I couldn't quite do that move. And then I started to look at Alonso and value for money. I kind of abandoned getting Hazard because it now requires a few more hits and a wild card, and so very frustrating. I do want him. Anyone who's got him in or is getting him in, I applaud you. You're going to get a really good returns over the next 2 as well.
Hazard's the player I'm going to fear this weekend.
Yeah,
not owning him.
There's always one. Last week though, my player I feared was Mane, and he didn't do it. But I just think Hazard will. Hazard's got 5 in 5 against Bournemouth. But the last 3 home games, he didn't score. That he featured in against Bournemouth, he didn't score. He scored a penalty, didn't score. So just that 1 goal. Pedro has also scored that 1 goal as well against them at home over that period. So at home, Hazard, historically, he's got a good record against Bournemouth, but not so good at home as well. What about you, Andy? What's your views on Hazard? Do you want him in all counts or just envy those who have him?
Yeah, I think it's more of an envy. Like, of course, I would like him in. If I could change my squad every week, then I would definitely have him in this week. Great fixtures, and like you said, a really good record against Bournemouth. And he kind of, looking at his points for the last 4 seasons, he almost alternates 200-point seasons when he has a bit of a falling out with the manager, if the manager's not doing so well that season. And so this could be his 200-point plus season, bearing in mind last year. And he's looked good. He's got attacking returns in all his games. He's definitely on penalties. But I mean, to answer the specific questions, is he a must-have? I think not at 10.5 million. I mean, most of us have got Aguero and Salah. It gets difficult after that to start fitting these players in, especially when, I've got Robertson and Mendy, and now I'm supposed to get Alonso as well in defence. It's getting pretty pricey, so I'm finding it hard to fit Hazard in as well. Now, Hazard instead of Mane, for example, is only 0.7, 0.8 million difference. Then that could be a goer. But again, if I've got Mane already, I'm not sure I want to make that switch. I just think generally there's probably a few more fires to put out for people. So not a must-have, and I just think because you're probably not going to captain him. I think you could captain him over the next 2 weeks, but if you look at the Aguero and Salah rotation, it's Newcastle, Fulham, Southampton, and Brighton at home. I just don't think you're going to go for Hazard. A little differential for sure, and if you're really interested in chasing at this point, then maybe. But for me, just the form that Aguero and Salah have shown as well, I'm just not going to go past him. So not essential. I'm not even sure he's worth a hit this week, depending on how your team shapes up. But I'd definitely back him over the next couple.
Yeah, no,
sure.
I think you made a good point there about the captaincy. That does play on my mind. I would love to get him in, but I'm going to be captaining Aguero this week. I'm probably going to captain Aguero the following week.
There's no way that you captain someone as unreliable as Hazard. That's my opinion.
I think I would against Bournemouth, even though his record at home isn't as good as away. But I think looking at him, the role he's playing in the team, I'd be tempted. But in comparison to Aguero,
that's the key.
At home, so you go, no way, no. There's like Wolves.
It's just almost like the wrong time for him. Like, I don't think any of us are going to sit here and say he's not going to get points. It's just trying to fit him into the current structures. I think.
Yeah,
it's easy to get Pedro Alonso in, like, just because the prices that are at. Like, Alonso is going to be difficult for me to get in. Pedro I could get in easy, but Hazard, that would require some serious surgery. So bearing in mind that I can't stand it from a fantasy Premier League perspective. I'm not going to get him yet.
No. So anything you've been writing about this week, David, that people should know about Hazards or anything, or is it?
Not yet. Probably going to have a look at him a little bit later. I mean, his ownership still isn't that high, so we might have a look at him in our differentials later on and bring up some stats. I think it's something like he's averaging a key pass every 27 minutes. So and a shot in the box every 44 minutes. I think that's what we were looking at earlier. So I mean, there is some data there. Like as Andy said, like we think he'll do well. The key really is just whether or not you can justify getting him in for whatever that takes for you to do.
I mean, he had 5 shots against Newcastle, which was the top for that match, which is good. It's impressive, and obviously got his penalty as well. Yeah, I do cover him. But yeah, you mentioned Alonso there, so he's a player I've got in. I've also got Mendy. I've also got Robertson. I haven't gone this deep into premium defensive territory ever, I don't think. I usually got loads of 4.5 players like Bolly in my team, but yeah, I've got 3, 6 plus players. So a lot of people are asking about this, and slowly more and more money is getting piled into defence. And people this week, I've heard talk 5-man defence, and they're going for it. And they've had enough of these midfielders. So is it time to play 5 at the back? Asks FPL Champ. They seem to be the most reliable scorers. And he speculates it could save vital money to afford Kane. A 5 at the back formation with some 4.5 mids and maybe a 4.5 forward could actually bring in Kane alongside the likes of Salah, Aguero, maybe. Lavish Punjabi, Alonso, Robertson, Trippier. He mentions Trippier as well as Mendy as well. How do we get them all in? Preyas, Buzzguy and Marv, how essential is Alonso? And is Robertson to Alonso a good move for those a bit tight on funds? Because Liverpool's fixtures do stiffen a little bit and Chelsea's get better. So yeah, I mean, coming to you again, Mark, what's your thought about how are you set up at the back? And I mean, yeah, could it be time for a 4 or 5 man defence with the big guns?
Yeah, I've always been a 3-man defence when it comes to FPL. I usually start the season maybe with 2 premiums and then, like yourself, a couple of 4.5s. I've set up this season with Ben Davis, who's trolled me. I got Mendy in game week 2, and I've got PVA as well. And then I've got the 2 4 million lads, Peltier and Wan-Bissaka. So I'm probably going to be looking to change things in my defence now. And probably for the first time ever, I'm going to set myself up with 4 at the back, and maybe move into a 4-3-3 or a 4-4-2. So I think it's every season in FPL is different, and the value seems to be in defence this season, especially with the wing back. So we've got to be flexible, and I'm never too set in stone with how I play the game. I kind of feel the season out and move accordingly then. So I'm definitely looking to move the 4 at the back soon.
So Alonso, is he?
Yeah, Alonso and Hazard are the 2 players top of my wanted list.
Have you found a way possibly to get them both in, or is that
to get either this week? It would probably require a hit, which I don't like to do. The other thing putting me off Alonso this week is I've got Josh King, so I'm hoping that Josh King will burst Alonso's bubble this weekend and get a goal against Chelsea. So when it comes to wildcard, those 2 players I'll be looking to bring in.
Well, I tell you what will burst Alonso's bubble. I've got him in. Last season, he went on a double-digit run of spectacular scoring, and I got him in. And he literally did nothing for 2 months. So, yeah, okay, I think you're probably onto a winner there, Josh King, hat-trick. What about you, David? What do you think about the back line? You going to start piling more money at the back?
Well, I'd love to. I mean, I'm the same. Alonso especially is top of my wanted list. But like you, last season, when I signed him was when it all went wrong. I think the interesting thing, I think sometimes when people talk about all this money in defence, what they're looking at outside of that. So someone said this question on Twitter the other day, and I thought it was a really good question, was would you rather have 4.5 defenders in your squad, or would you rather have 4.5 forwards in your squad? And actually, to be honest, I think I'd rather have the 4.5 defenders. So if you've got 5 premium forwards, defenders, you're going to have some real dross up front. And obviously, some people just prefer just to have a bench that just sucks anyway. But in terms of flexibility for week to week, I don't know. I mean, I don't really know the answer to that. I don't know if you guys have thoughts on that particular idea. But if you're going big in defence, you have to understand that you're going small in attack, and that can end up hurting you. 2-3 weeks time, we could need both Kane and Aubameyang, or we might need, Kane or Aguero at the same time. So, I mean, going all in on the defenders might leave you a little bit inflexible. I don't know. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I mean, Andy, what do you think about that?
I completely agree. I think 3-week sample and suddenly it's all about going big at the back. I'm not quite sure about that. I mean, Wilson's doing really well up front. Mitrovic is doing really well up front. Zaha's 2 goals in 3 games with a great set of fixtures come in. Mane was essential until this week. We've got Aguero. Mkhitaryan was essential until this week. And I just think there's enough still in attack where I don't feel I need to go 4. I mean, 4 at the back, fair enough. 5, I feel like that leaves you a bit inflexible, personally. So yeah, I mean, talking about Alonso in particular, I just hope that he can't keep this up. 5 attacking returns in 3 games is insane. Like, most attackers can't do that, let alone defender. Obviously, potentially not a penalty. We won't argue about it, but it could have not been a penalty. An off-target shot that gets deflected in. Maybe a little bit lucky. As Apple Bonkers put out on Twitter, he's got more assists than he's created chances already this year. The last 2 seasons, I'm basically trying to talk myself out of getting him in. I know that everyone else is pro him, so I'm going to try and put an argument across against him. In the last 2 seasons, 11 and 9 attacking returns. He's already got 5 this season, so he's either going to have an absolutely spectacular season or at some point it's going to tail off a bit. And then, yes, he's got the most goal attempts for defenders, but 10 defenders have created more chances than him. And he's already got 4 assists, so that's surely going to dry up at some point soon. But granted, the next 2 fixtures are probably not the time when it's going to happen. And then 8 more defenders than him have got more shots on target. So, yes, he's done well. And obviously, he bombs up and down that left side. He's in the box, so he is going to create himself chances and get in to the positions he needs to be. But he's 6.7 million now. And I just think with Robertson and Mendy, I'm not really looking to offload them. I know Robertson's got tough fixtures coming up. But I think top teams can get clean sheets in those kind of fixtures. And obviously, he's super attacking. He's a bit of a bonus points monster as well. So, of course, Alonso's a good option. But for me, I'm not rushing to get him in. And I've kind of put myself in that position by getting Walcott in. I can't really get Alonso now about taking like an 8-point hit. So I've kind of made that decision. I'm not going to get him in. And I just hope that it's hope more than definite think he will is that the attacking returns, he just can't keep this up, I don't think. And I realise by saying that, I'm going to get so much flack next week when he scores a hat-trick or knocks in a free kick and keeps a clean sheet. But I think there's enough there which makes me think I don't need to rush to get him this week. Yeah,
I mean, I've now got Alonso alongside Robertson and Mendy, and I kind of like that. I like the look of my defence there. I wouldn't say they're all fixture-proof, but I'm quite happy to field them every week. We've seen Mendy do well in those tough fixtures, the first game in particular. So among the top 10 scorers, 3 are defenders, those 3 I've mentioned, and they all cost less than 7 million. And of the mids and forwards in the top 10, Mitrovic, Moura and Pereira at Watford are comparable in price, really. They're all kind of very similar price. So I think there is still clearly value in other positions. And I think for me, that's the key thing, because you mentioned Apple Bonkers earlier, and this is something I know he hates me saying, is I don't see these as players, I just see them as price points around my team. And I look at value. I'm looking at a slot in my team that's 6 to 7 million, and I want to get lots of points from that slot. I don't really care if it's a defender or midfielder or whoever. And for me at the moment, Mendy, Robertson, Alonso are just delivering, and I think they will continue to deliver. And if they're not, obviously I can move them on, downgrade them very easily. And in the mids and the forwards, they're delivering there as well. So I mentioned Mitrovic, Moura and Pereira. So there's really good value in those other positions. It's not all about value in the defence. So I am keeping an open mind. But at the moment, I can see no reason to dump any of those 3 players that I mentioned. And I can see no reason to overlook them as well. And with that, Andy, he came at exactly the same type of moves as I did and came to exactly the different conclusion in that I immediately prioritised Alonso and you immediately prioritised Walcott. And yeah, I mean, who knows how it's going. I mean, it'd be great if they can both score. But it's quite tricky, really, how people are coming at different angles. And I'd say Alonso, people don't like the word essential. I just think for that price, for the clean sheets, goals, assists, even if they're dodgy assists, bonus points and value and fixtures. Have I mentioned fixtures? I'll mention it again. He's just got the lot. Whereas Walcott, as David's analysis showed, has not got the lot. He's just got the fixtures. And the eye test and a couple of people at Everton game saying he looks a bit better than last season. So, yeah, that's going to be good. Good point of difference there. Yeah, anyone else got anything to say about defenders before we move on?
I think we've done defenders enough.
Yeah.
I feel like we've, like the guys have said, like there's value elsewhere.
There is.
Come on, guys, let's talk about something other than
I think the point as well. One of the questions was about getting 5 to. I know we're going to talk about it soon, but to get Kane, then no.
Yeah.
If that's the reason why,
Yeah,
we'll talk about it in a minute.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So wildcarding. Let's move on to that because Kane's all part of this discussion as well. When's the best time to do it? So, fantasy football analyst Nick, who I believe made his own podcast debut this week with Who Got the Assist. If wildcarding now, who should we be getting? He asks. FPL Awesomeo, which fixture shifts should those who haven't wildcarded be looking at as a good time to deploy it? And there's a brilliant question from Jabberwocky here, obviously taking a break from his slidey toves. And with so many red and yellow flags appearing, a lot of us are opting to wildcard this game week, me included. So he's fired it up and he's off. Who would you say are the definitive must-haves? And is Salah an absolute necessity within that? And as part of that, we'll come through this discussion. We'll mention Kane as well, because he is an important part of a wildcard discussion, perhaps. So, Mark, what did you were possibly considering wildcarding, you decided not to. So what's your rationale for not wildcarding? When do you think you might? When the types of times you would? And just finally, a bit of advice for those who are wildcarding now. Who would be the players to get in?
I've had a pretty frustrating start to the season. Quite a few 50-50s have punished me, probably like never before, 50-50 decisions. But so I was quite tempted to wildcard last week and then again this week. I get asked a lot, when's the best time to wildcard and things like that. But I think it always depends on your own team. You'll know yourself looking at your squad when it needs freshened up. And when I look at my Game Week 4 squad on paper, to me, it looks fine. It looks good enough to get a green arrow. So I'm not going to let my rank, push me into an early, rage wildcard. So, when I play the wildcard as well, I like to have more than 3 weeks of data to go off. So I'm going to hold on to it for as long as I can. Now I do think I can see myself playing it maybe game week 4, game week 5. So it probably is getting close.
So what's a good reason to wildcard? Big fixture swing, a lot of people, Mark included last week, wildcarded. They saw the Aguero hat trick and thought, my God, I've got to get him in. I can't easily. I'm going to wildcard. Something like that. A restructure. Are they the best times to wildcard?
Yeah, I think fixture swings is one to consider definitely. But for me, it's usually just when I've got too many fires to fight and it involves, a lot of point sets to fix, I use a wild card to do the surgery. Then that's usually how I do it. For those who are wild carding this week, I know there's probably quite a few this week. The players I would go for, I'd probably keep Ederson. I've got Ederson. I probably would hold him if I was wild carding. I'd be looking at then probably Wan-Bissaka, Alonso, Mendy, and I'd probably hold on to PVA as well. Palace have good fixtures. I'd probably be happy enough to go without Robertson, just with Liverpool's fixtures for the time being, even though he's killed me in the first couple of weeks. Salah and Hazard then in midfield, and Aguero, and probably one of Zaha or Mitrovic, and then it's just filling in the gaps after that. Salah I would probably hold on to. I don't see any reason to sell him just yet.
Yeah, what about you, David? Kind of tempted to wildcard? When do you usually wildcard? What are the key reasons? And just finally, key players for those that are wildcarding this week. Yeah,
I think I'm the same as Mark, really. For me, the biggest factor is normally when I look at my squad and think, wow, this needs some work. That's going to take more than a 4-point hit. Obviously, I like to, the ideal situation is to start well and then wildcard around a fixture swing and then continue to do well. But obviously, it doesn't always work out that way. I'm not thinking about it just yet because again, like Mark said, I kind of want more weeks of data really before I start picking a whole new squad. And I think, to be honest, it sounds like a bit of a cop-out, but that's kind of like my answer to the question about who's essential. Because personally, I don't think anyone past maybe Salah, possibly Mendy, can really be considered as must-haves when we've only had 3 weeks. Because I'm probably going to play it. I'd like to play it maybe after the next international break. Fixture swings that kind of look all like game week 9, 10, some fixtures sort of turn around. That's when Newcastle get a nice bit of sea of blue on our ticker, and Crystal Palace's fixtures get kind of tough around then as well. So maybe around that sort of time. if you are a wildcard, I suppose I probably should answer the question a little bit. Like, yeah, Alonso, Robertson, and Mendy, they've got good fixtures, and
Aguero surely as well.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, in defence, if you're gonna go for a 3-man premium, Alonso, Robertson, and Mendy are the ones to go for, and then Aguero and probably someone, either Pedro or Hazard, and someone in the Arsenal attack as well, so either Mkhitaryan or Aubameyang, depends on sort of what you're looking at, really.
Okay, what about you, Andy? Were you considering it this week? Sometimes you've wildcarded early, but not the right time for you yet.
Yeah, and I don't think so. I think this is my 9th season of like the first 6. I didn't make it past game week 4, and last season I was game week 12. So I've kind of learned to hold it when I need it. I think sometimes in FPL, like coming off the back of a week like this, where most of us have done rubbish, these are the toughest weeks, and try not to react too much to what's just happened, and try and still look further ahead, because we had 2 great weeks now. We've had an awful one, and suddenly everything we thought was perfect is now suddenly not perfect. But obviously, you've got to look ahead. Just to answer one question, I always feel like we don't even need to answer this, but it was asked, and people have been talking about in the chat about Mo Salah, whether he's essential. All I say is most big chances, most chances created, most goal attempts, most shots in the box, most shots on target, highest XG, and 8.3 points per game, which he did all the last season. He's already doing again. I cannot believe we even have to talk about him. Harry Kane.
He's worth every penny. I agree. He's worth every penny.
Yeah. And captaincy, when Aguero doesn't have a good fixture, he's got a good fixture. Like I think it's crazy, but I get it. It's a lot of money. Moving on to who's essential, I don't really have any different players to what's already been mentioned. Really, I've only written down a few, to be honest. 2 of Robertson, Mendy, Alonso. And granted, if you're only going to get 2 of them, you probably go for Mendy and Alonso right now just because of fixtures. But I still think Robertson's got loads of value. And then probably 1 or 2 of Zaha, Mitrovic, and Wilson. And Aguero and Wan-Bissaka just because he's 4 million in a Palace defence which has got really good fixtures. I don't think I would take Wan-Bissaka out because he's so cheap. But I do think if Tompkins is out for a week or 2, that could hurt their clean sheet potential. But I think it was just a calf injury, so hopefully he'll be back. I don't know if we've had any news about that. And then to answer when I would use it, again, when I think I really need it, like if I look at my team now, of course, there's a couple of players I'd like to switch. I'd much rather have Alonso than Bayer. I'd much rather have Hazard than Mane this week, but they're not. 2 players does not mean I need to wildcard. And I think a lot of the players, a lot of the teams that have got good fixtures, most of us have already got their players in. And the ones that we don't, apart from maybe outside of Hazard and Alonso, I don't think they're necessarily essential. And just to answer the last question, I know there's been quite a few on wildcards. Kane, I'm still not looking at him. I'm still not worrying about him, and maybe that's stupid of me to do given what his record's like. But I just think for 12.5 million, Aguero's not doing anything wrong. Once you have Aguero and Salah, I just don't see how you fit Harry Kane in. So for me, I'm just not going for him right now. And I'm not even thinking about how I get him in.
His underlying numbers aren't good enough yet. Like he's getting goals, and like because the reason people are talking about it is because he's actually done something in August, which is absolutely crazy. But in previous years, he's been unlucky not to do well in August, and yet people have still decided they don't need him.
He's had as many goal attempts as Lukaku, and Troy Deeney has had more shots on target than him. Yeah,
he's well below his average shot per game last year was 4.97, and then at the moment it's 2.67. So it's basically just over half. He's just over 50% of his usual output. So it's just if he was a bit cheaper, you'd maybe look at it. But it's just 12.5 million for a guy who's technically operating at 50% of his capacity from last season. It just isn't.
We've got a couple of questions specifically on Kane. Fancy Guru, can Kane be got in to a team going for? And would you have to then make sacrifices such as getting lots of midfield enablers in? So he mentions Guendouzi there, and Chenku asks, our assets from Spurs being fairly ignored. Kane seems to be a steady scorer now. You mentioned it there, the price. If you're going to be captaining one of Aguero or Salah most weeks for the foreseeable future, getting a 12.5 player in who you don't actually think is as good a captaincy shout as those other 2, and obviously costs 12.5, and you've got a 30 million player and an 11 million player, it's just not good. It's not going to be done. I tried today to create a wildcard team featuring Salah, Aguero, and Kane. So this is a bit different to kind of who's essential to get in. This is me attempting to do it because they're ordinarily, if they weren't so blooming highly priced, I'd want to get all of them in. And I must admit, team is not great. So I would have to get rid of. So at the moment, I've tried to get Alonso, Robertson, and Mendy in. I mean, that's difficult. So I've got Wan-Bissaka and I've kept Bolly there and Salah's there. So I'll get Fraser in. So that's not too bad 5.5. He's a lot of value in midfield. And then I've got a double pivot of rubbishness of Stevens and Guendouzi there. So that's just, I'm not even going to say the Jack and the Beanstalk thing, but that's just awful. And then I've got Mkhitaryan as a kind, but he could become like a Walcott or Pedro, I guess. So once again, you know, I'm kind of second, third best player of teams, and then you got Kane and Aguero. That's good. I've splashed out a bit on Danny Ings rather than a 4.5. So I think having 3 4.5 players in attack would be awful. So it is doable. I mean, that team
doesn't sound as bad as you initially made it sound. To be honest,
but it could be much better.
It could be much better.
Yeah, of course. But it's just I thought it'd be a team full of like 4 millions and 4
well,
5s.
That's essentially basically by putting Kane in for, at the moment I've got Arnautovic in that role. By putting Kane in and having to spend 5.5 million, I've had to steadily go through the rest of my team and just downgrade, and having Stevens and Guendouzi in the middle. And also my back line isn't really that strong enough for like a regular 4 or 5 at the back. So I then have to downgrade someone like Alonso or Mendy. And once you're starting to do that, you're downgrading really good form players with great fixtures, all to get Kane in. So, I mean, it'd be great to hear on Twitter, on Fantasy Football Scout, on the site, in the comment boards, if anyone's managed to get a credible wildcard team with Salah, Kane and Aguero in, and a decent defence with some of those big names I've mentioned. But for me, it looks really tricky.
Surely you need cheat codes for that.
So,
Surely you just need cheat codes to do that. Anyone's got them? Tell us, please.
I think just with Chenku's point about Kane now seems to be a steady scorer. I don't think anyone thinks that he's not going to be throughout the season. And that's not really the point, I suppose. I just think for 12.5, like Salah, again, is averaging over 8 points a game. Kane for 12.5 million needs to almost match that as well because he's almost the same price. So no one's expecting him not to score points. But, you know, when he scores, we need him to be getting bonus points. He needs to make sure. He only got 2 assists last year, I think it was. Now he's already got 1 this year, I think. I don't think he's hit 2 yet. So he needs to get that up as well. And he is going to score steadily. He'll get close to 30 goals, if not more again. But that might not be enough with the other players. And it's not to say you can't own him throughout the whole season. I just think right now, not enough.
Well, it's like with them. Eriksen is perhaps going to start being a steady scorer again. Dele Alli he didn't score on Monday, but he has been this season, has been in the past. But they're all cheaper, and you can get them in and still have a decent rest of the side. I mean, what do you think about Mark, about Kane and the Spurs situation? Because you've got Eriksen in your side. Now I've just dumped Eriksen, but looking at Monday, I think I've made a bit of a mistake there. I think Eriksen could be that steady scorer that perhaps people after Kane want.
Yeah, I mentioned you were asking me about that on the Breakfast Club on Saturday about holding Eriksen, and I said I was going to just remain patient with him and give him Man United and give him Watford as well. He's a player, the likes of KDB and Hazard, who you just set and forget, and the points trickle in at some point. So I'm going to keep Eriksen for game week 4 against Watford and then reassess. Just going back to the wildcard squad you put together, just to chip in on the Harry Kane thing. The way I look at it is, you didn't mention Hazard in that wildcard squad.
I couldn't obviously afford him. Yeah.
If I was wildcarding this week, I just think going Hazard over Harry Kane for that 2 million difference, then that sorts out your issues. You can upgrade your Guendouzis and your Stevens. Then I think that's just a lot stronger at this point in time.
Yeah, no, I think that's great advice. I think because there will be people wildcarding struggling to get all of them in, and it really is, I think, that simple. Hazard has got the form and the fixtures, and he's 2 million cheaper. And that 2 million, it goes so far. I mean, I've agonised over getting these 4.5s in. It was awful, really. I mean, just going back a bit about timing. So for me, I don't feel wildcard ready at the moment. I don't have that inkling. I don't think we have quite enough data yet. I'm not quite sure who the good and the bad players are, who's going to maintain form. For me, and I like to do it over fixture swing. So last season, I think I did it game week 6 or 8. I can't remember which, but it was when Man City's fixtures became very, very good, and I just went all in on City. It completely transformed my start. I just went shooting up, and so it's kind of quite a nice kind of positive, aggressive wild card from a position of strength. And I really am going to resist doing it if I've got lots of red flags. I'll try and move them out. I mean, obviously it might come impossible, but my ideal really is looking at something like the first opportunity, I think, is game week 6. I think game week 6 looks quite good. So you've got Arsenal and Palace are still quite good. Bournemouth is still quite good. So you can get some quite bargains there. we might by then know who the best Arsenal player is. And then Tottenham's also become good. So they've got Liverpool in game week 5. That's not great. And then they've got a really nice run of Brighton, Huddersfield, Cardiff and West Ham. So suddenly Tottenham get better. And that's when I might have a decision to make about Eriksen or Kane. And I think that's a good time to make that decision when good fixtures are coming. Manchester United, they might have a new manager then. Who knows? But they've got some great fixtures there, particularly game week 6, Wolverhampton at home. Leicester as well. People are forgetting Leicester. They've got loads of budget gems there. Jamie Vardy's just retired from international football. Well, game week 6, he's got Huddersfield at home. And I think he could be a great player to get in. Now, he's talking about steady, reliable scorers. And you go through the list there. Fulham suddenly get better. So after City away, game week 5, suddenly they got Watford at home. So that's much better for them. And it goes on. I mean, everyone's free to have a look on Fantasy Football Scout. Have a look at the season ticker on the widget down the side. And if you remember, just press all the buttons and bells and whistles on it and have a look through it. West Ham's fixtures get really awful from game week 6. I mean, they're patchy at the moment. They just turn awful, really poor. So I've got an Arnautovic, good time to move him on. I've got Danny Ings. So anyone with Ings, game week 6 plays Southampton. Southampton play Liverpool. So he won't better play. So he'd be because of the loan deal. So I don't know. That's for me. Game week 6 looks quite good. Anyone else have any particular timings? I don't know if you've looked at in detail at fixtures.
The only thing for the fixture swing is I think it worked out so well for you last year because you were getting Man City players in, and if you don't have Man City players, you're in trouble. But I think this season's a bit different because we've all kind of loaded on Man City and Liverpool from the off. And again, without going back over what we've already said about, maybe Eriksen or Kane or Ali, potentially Hazard as well looks good right now. I don't know if there's any teams that have got that player where I'd really think I've got a wild card to get them in. Unless something changes, if Aubameyang goes on a run, Aguero gets injured, then it's a bit different. But right now, I feel like we've got most of the big hitters we'd want on a fixture swing anyway. Like I'm not going to be taking out my Liverpool and Man City players even when the fixtures turn up. So timing for me is literally going to be a wait and see, play it by ear. As soon as I need it, I'll use it, and until then, I probably won't worry too much. Obviously, if a fixture swing coincides with a few injuries, that's a bit different. But I don't know if there's the teams that have got the fixture swings coming up that would make me want to play it.
Okay, well, let's turn to more immediate concerns. Game week 4 is coming up. As we said at the beginning, our game weeks weren't that great. Average to awful. Well, awful in my case, average in the rest of yours. So, what are your plans for next week? So, Mark, you go first.
Yeah, I've got one free transfer and I've got Richarlison to get rid of. So that's going to be probably my most obvious move. As I mentioned earlier, I'm waiting for an update on Arnautovic because if he's ruled out for the weekend, I'm going to be looking pretty light. I'm probably only going to have about a squad of 12 players for the weekend. That would be even after the replacement of Richarlison. So probably Richardson to Walcott. And if Arnie's ruled out, I could just promote Wan-Bissaka from the bench to give him a start.
Yeah. What about you, Andy?
Yeah, so I've already made my free transfer, Richarlison to Walcott. I don't have any others. I'm probably not going to take a hit. After kind of not predicting, but thinking there was a chance of Bailly being rested last week, I think there's a chance he gets back in the team this week because Jones obviously injured. Lindelof came on, didn't do too well. I don't think we're going to play a back 5 again. So I think Bailly, there's a chance he comes in. And although I got screwed by that last week and only had to play 10 men, if he doesn't play this week, I've got Wan-Bissaka. And I'm pretty hopeful the rest of the team will play. So I'm probably going to take that risk that to keep Bailly, play him, and then I've got Wan-Bissaka coming off the bench. I mean, potentially I should play Wan-Bissaka before Bailly, the way Man United are playing, but we'll see how that goes. So I'm probably not going to make another transfer. If I do, it'll be Bailly to maybe even someone like Van Arnold I'm looking at for a hit.
Your captaincy, Aguero, presumably?
Yeah.
And same with you, Mark, Aguero captain?
Yeah, it's 100% Aguero this week. I think was a status scene this week. 12 games against Newcastle, 14 goals. That's enough for me.
Yeah, I mean, have a look at our captaincy video we did today. Recorded that with David earlier. We had a great tweet up from Holly Fantasy Football Community, which was just a picture of loads and loads of footballs, and each one signified Aguero's many goals against Newcastle at home as well. 5 in one of those matches.
There's probably managers tempted to play triple captainship this week.
I was going to say, now Mark Harbrow, who always asks nice questions, considering the problems many of us had with triple captainship last season, Is it worth giving it to a form player versus a team they love to score against? Well, 9 goals in the last 3 home games. Doesn't get better than that. Aguero versus Newcastle. Are you tempted, Mark, then?
It wasn't until today I seen
Just
someone
now.
tweeting about it, and I was like, well, that is actually tempting. But I've always played triple captain in a double game week, and I just don't think I could forgive myself if I captained Aguero and Pep Guardiola trolled me. I think I would just retire.
Yeah. What about you, David? What's your plans? And are you triple captaining or just single captaining?
I'm not going to triple captain. Like that's the thing. Like you can't do it on a player like Aguero who could be rotated. I mean, you'd like to think he wouldn't be, but yeah, double game week for me on that. Yeah, he's going to be my captain anyway. Just that history. I've always been a big fan of captaining people if I can in a fixture against a team they do well against. So yeah, that's an easy one for me. In terms of what I'm going to do transfer wise, I'd love to do nothing. I'd love to just roll and just bank another transfer, and then a lot of people are going to make changes over the international break. So if I could maybe do a mini wild card, then I'd be quite happy with that. Like my first 11, I'm fairly happy with, but my bench is just looking a bit. I'm not so sure. So I mean, I forgot to mention at the top of the show that I played with 10 men because Peltier didn't play, and then Tompkins got injured in the warm up. So I got a yellow flag on Tompkins. My bench is basically Tompkins, Peltier, and Stevens, which is just not particularly great. So I could maybe do some work there. But to be honest, I think I'd rather maybe try and react to some of the transfer market swings that have been going on in the last couple of days. So I could do. I'm possibly thinking Bernardo Silva to Pedro. Some of Bernardo Silva's underlying numbers haven't been as great as it could be. Or I could go in the opposite direction and upgrade him into David Silva, who's completely the opposite. His underlying numbers have been a lot more encouraging. Or I'm kind of thinking about Zaha maybe. So there's a few options I might go for. Okay. I've got some money in the bank, so I'm quite free.
I was going to say, you can do the Bernardo Silva to David Silva move just like that.
Yeah, I've got 1.8 in the bank. Basically.
That looks good. I like the look of that because I think because it could go cricket score against Newcastle. That's the way it. I think he's going to play because with De Bruyne out, I just think he's needed, and I think he'll get his rest whenever De Bruyne is back.
Yeah, I think with Bernardo Silva, we went for him. A lot of us went for him because we knew he was like the one guy who's definitely going to play because of the World Cup. But we're kind of really past that now. So now we get back into that kind of David Silva's a key guy, even with De Bruyne around. And we generally like to say with Man City midfielders, just get one who you think is going to play every week and stick with them because the points will just trickle through. And now that Bernardo Silva isn't kind of the special one for Pep anymore, David Silva just feels like more obvious.
It feels like Bernardo Silva has just morphed into James Milner. He's just really good at everything and
jack of all trades, master of none.
He's a great lad to have around, and and that's what. Yeah, and he's just there, and he's going to play, and they're going to play him anywhere, and he's just going to move back. And
you're playing goal next, just for a laugh.
You're playing goal for a laugh, and then I just look at David Silva, and I just go, oh, he's still got it, and.
He's on set pieces as well, of course, David Silva, with De Bruyne out.
He's still the magician. I can't afford David Silva myself. So for me, I've made the move. Luke Shaw out. I saw enough of Man United on Monday to know that I just don't want to go near Manchester. I don't care if he scores and gets a clean sheet, but I don't care. I just don't want. I was considering Paul Pogba this week as a transfer for Richarlison, and I just don't want to go. They're just horrible. It's a crash. It's a crash happening before our eyes. And I just wanted to point out now, talking about Aguero, a lot of us were put off, myself and Andy were put off captaining Aguero last time because of a journalist called Jamie Jackson who claimed that Pep was considering dropping Aguero. Of course, as it transpired, he played and got 20 points. At that press conference, it was Jamie Jackson again, who was asking those difficult questions of Mourinho, who actually said, well, you lost 3-0, didn't you?
No
Mourinho
respect.
just went, no respect. Well,
you know what this means?
Yeah.
3 titles.
That's the amount of goals Luke Shaw's going to score this week.
Yeah, and
that's something you should play at the back.
So it was a beautiful moment. So Jamie Jackson had trolled the fantasy Premier League community, and then he just said, no, this isn't enough. I'm gonna go to the big time, and he went up there and he trolled Mourinho.
Maybe Mourinho was gonna captain Aguero, and then Mourinho captain. Because I don't know if people have seen this. Loads of United players don't have themselves in their team, don't have any Man United players in their team. They're captaining Liverpool players, they're captaining Man City players. Man United fans must hate that, but it's got to show something. They don't have any faith in themselves.
I waited until this week to bring him in against Burnley. Rubbish. Jesse Lingard, I saw you call him on the captaincy thing. This is the week for him. Great Richarlison replacement we didn't mention.
Here we go.
Do watch the captaincy video recorded. David drops the J-Lings bomb and he drops it. Well, I'm shocked. I was left shocked. I'm still reeling from it. But anyway, thanks so much for joining us, Andy, David and Mark. But for now, it's a goodbye from me.
Goodbye from me.
Good night.
Good night, folks.
Good night, all.